What drives a person to sabotage their own community, to seal shut the very door that connects them to their neighbors? In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and friendly waves defined daily life, Karen Whitaker's actions would unravel the fragile threads of trust that held the neighborhood together. Her story is one of defiance, desperation, and a devastating fall, revealing the raw edges of human nature when pride and pain collide. Karen was no stranger to Willow Creek. She'd lived there for 15 years, her tidy bungalow a testament to her meticulous nature. To the outside world, she was the quintessential neighbor, always the first to organize block parties, her roses the envy of the gardening club. But beneath her polished exterior simmered a growing resentment. The community center, the heart of Willow Creek, had become a source of her silent fury. Its glass doors always swinging with the chatter of children, the laughter of book club meetings, and the clinking of wine glasses at fundraisers, felt like a mockery of her isolation. It hadn't always been this way. Karen once thrived in the bustle of the center, chairing committees and basking in the gratitude of her neighbors. But 2 years ago, her husband, Tom, left her for a younger woman, and the whispers began. Poor Karen, they'd say, their pity stinging worse than any insult. She withdrew, her smiles replaced by curt nods, her presence at community events dwindling. The center, once her stage, now felt like a spotlight on her loneliness. And then there was the new Dora sleek, modern glass structure installed after a fundraiser she hadn't been invited to. To Karen, it was a symbol of her exclusion, a gleaming reminder that Willow Creek had moved on without her. The idea came to her one sleepless night, fueled by a bottle of Merlot and a gnawing sense of injustice. If the community wouldn't welcome her, she'd make them feel her absence. She'd lock them out, just as they'd locked her out of their lives. The plan was simple, almost childish in its audacity. Industrial-grade epoxy, the kind used for construction, applied to the community center's doorframe under the cover of darkness. No one would know it was her. The door would be sealed, the center inaccessible, and the neighborhood would feel the weight of her resentment. At 2 a.m., Karen crept out, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The street was silent, the moon casting long shadows across the center's lawn. She wore gloves, a scarf pulled tight around her face, and carried a small canister of epoxy. The cold metal of the can burned against her palm as she worked, squeezing the glue into the door's edges, watching it seep into the cracks. She imagined their faces confused, frustrated, maybe even a little scared when they found the door immovable. For the first time in years, she felt powerful. The next morning, chaos erupted. Parents arrived with kids for the Saturday art class, only to find the door sealed shut. The gardening club, led by the perpetually cheerful Mrs. Larson, tugged uselessly at the handle. Whispers turned to shouts, and soon a crowd gathered, their voices a mix of anger and disbelief. "Who would do this?" someone cried. Karen stood at the edge, her face a mask of feigned shock, her pulse racing with a thrill she hadn't felt in years. The police were called, and a maintenance crew confirmed the damage. The epoxy had fused the door to its frame, rendering it useless. The cost to replace it glass, frame, and all was estimated at $100,000, a staggering sum for a community-funded center. The Neighborhood Association, led by Javier Morales, a no-nonsense lawyer, vowed to find the culprit. Karen watched from her porch, her satisfaction curdling into unease as the investigation began. Enter Lila, a quiet newcomer to Willow Creek who lived across from the center. Lila was an enigma, a retired private investigator who kept to herself, her only notable habit being her daily walks with a small, scruffy dog named Max. She'd moved to the neighborhood seeking peace after years of chasing criminals, but her sharp eyes missed nothing. She noticed Karen's late-night absence, the faint chemical smell lingering near the center, and the way Karen's gaze darted nervously when the vandalism was discussed. Lila didn't confront Karen directly. She wasn't one for drama, but she began to watch. Days turned into weeks, and the community's frustration grew. Fundraisers were launched to cover the repair costs, but the center remained closed, its absence a gaping wound in Willow Creek's daily life. Karen, meanwhile, was unraveling. Her triumph had been fleeting. The guilt gnawed at her, and the neighbors' unity in the face of the crisis only deepened her isolation. She'd wanted to punish them, but instead, they banded together, their resilience a mirror to her own fragility. Then came the twist. Lila, ever observant, found a discarded epoxy canister in the recycling bin behind Karen's house. It was a careless mistake, one Karen hadn't anticipated. Lila didn't go to the police right away. Instead, she knocked on Karen's door one evening, Max trotting at her heels. "I know what you did," Lila said, her voice calm but firm. Karen froze, her heart in her throat. She expected judgment, maybe even a threat, but Lila's next words were unexpected. "I've seen people do worse for less. Tell me why." Karen broke. Years of bottled-up pain spilled out. Tom's betrayal, the pitying glances, the feeling of being erased. Lila listened, her face unreadable, and when Karen finished, she said, "You can't undo the glue, but you can face it. Confess, Karen. It's the only way you'll find any peace." Lila's compassion, so unexpected from a stranger, cracked something open in Karen. She saw, for the first time, the cost of her actions not just to the community, but to herself. The next day, Karen stood before the neighborhood association, her voice trembling as she admitted her crime. The room was silent, the weight of her confession hanging heavy. Javier, the association president, was the first to speak. "Why, Karen?" he asked, not with anger, but with a sadness that cut deeper than any fine. She had no answer, only tears. The legal consequences were swift. The court fined her $100,000 to cover the replacement costs and ordered her to oversee the installation of a new door. But the true punishment was social. Neighbors she'd once called friends turned away. The gardening club revoked her membership. Even Mrs. Larson, ever kind, could only offer a pained smile. Karen's bungalow, once a beacon of community pride, became a place of exile. The new door was installed on a crisp autumn morning, its glass gleaming under the sun. Karen stood alone as the workers finished, her hands trembling as she signed the final paperwork. The community center buzzed with life again, but she wasn't invited to the reopening. Lila was there, though, watching from a distance with Max at her side. She'd given Karen a chance to redeem herself, but redemption, she knew, wasn't guaranteed. Karen's story spread beyond Willow Creek, a cautionary tale whispered in other suburbs. Some saw her as a villain, others as a woman broken by her own choices. But the truth was Messier. She'd wanted to reclaim her place, to make the world feel her pain, but all she'd done was seal herself out. The door she'd glued shut was more than glass, it was her connection to the people she'd once loved. As winter settled over Willow Creek, Karen packed her bags. The fine had drained her savings, and the weight of her neighbor's silence was too much to bear. She left quietly, her bungalow sold to a young couple eager to join the community. The roses she'd tended so carefully wilted under the first frost, unnoticed by the neighbors who'd once admired them. In the end, Karen's act of defiance didn't just cost her $100,000 or a door. It cost her a home, a community, and the chance to heal. The new door stood as a testament to her mistake, a gleaming reminder that some wounds, once inflicted, can never be unglued. ND